Akuto was a country bumpkin who wanted to become a high priest, but his dreams were crushed the moment he took admission in the Magical Arts Academy and found out that he was fated to become the Demon Lord. All the students started keeping their distance from him except for 4 freaky girls who tried their best to get inside his pants. Now Akuto spends his days trying his best to make everyone believe that he is not the evil demon lord everyone thinks. Akuto is on his way to the train station when he realizes an old hag trying to gather her belongings. He decides to help her out and even offers to take her luggage up the stairs. However, she insisted on not troubling the youngster, and their interaction seemed like a thief trying to steal from an old lady. Suddenly, Junko arrives and kicks the living crap out of Akuto. Afterward, the grandma clears up the misunderstanding, which results in Junko apologizing for her rude behavior. She introduces herself as a student of the Magical Arts Academy and realizes that Akuto might be a fellow student as well. After boarding the train that takes them to the school, Junko praises him for being accepted as a transfer student, as it is a hard feat to accomplish. A creepy grin appears on his face, and he lets her know about his goals. Turns out, he wants to change the world for the better and become a high priest. This comes as a surprise to Junko, as she never thought a creep like him wanted to become a high priest. However, she decides to help him achieve his dreams and informs her about her goals as well. Apparently, she belongs to a ninja family and wants to protect the empire by following in her family's footsteps. After noticing that the two of them can be good friends, Junko takes out her sword to swear an honest friendship between the two. Later, they arrive at the Magical Academy, and the country bumpkin is surprised after seeing such a place. Junko leaves after advising him to visit the nurse's office. The nurse uses her magical glasses to instantly recognize who he is. The nurse introduces herself as Mitsuko and begins examining the newly transferred student's health and physical condition. She uses a nerd-looking crow who is capable of detecting the physical state of students and informing them about their future occupation. Finally, it's Akuto's turn, and the crow detects that his future occupation is the Demon Lord. Hearing this statement scares everyone in the room. Akuto goes into a state of shock, as someone who wants to be a high priest will end up becoming the greatest threat to society. Afterward, Mitsuko tells him not to worry about it that much and informs him that the academy will regard him as a special student. Furthermore, there might be a chance that someone with a strong sense of justice might want to stab him with a toilet plunger or set up some traps to harm him. However, it is okay for him to meet his demise, as he could still be useful to Mitsuko. She plans to bring him back to life and experiment all she wants on a future demon lord. Finally, they arrive at his new class, and it turns out Mitsuko is their homeroom teacher. After entering the class, Akuto notices that he is in the same class as Junko. Surprisingly, everyone is aware of him being the Demon Lord, which prompts him to make a good first impression. He tells everyone that it is not fair to be terrified of him even when they haven't met him once. Unfortunately, the things he said turned out to be the declaration of war that the ex-Demon Lord once said. With that being said, Akuto finally takes his seat and notices everyone glaring at him from all directions. Mitsuko wants to appoint a new class president and asks Junko to do the job. Unexpectedly, Hiroshi stands up and nominates Akuto for the class president role. Nevertheless, Akuto refuses to take the role and informs everyone that someone like him is more suited for the cleaning duty. This statement makes the students even more terrified, as cleaning duty indicates a person who is willing to destroy anyone in their path to keep the school's secret. Akuto, who is simply trying to clean some toilets, tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but it is of no use. Eventually, Junko stands up from her seat and confronts Akuto for playing with her feelings. Everyone starts thinking that this animal tried taking unfair advantage of her, and all sorts of scenarios start playing in their head. She takes out a sword and challenges Akuto to a duel, which Mitsuko allows, as it is according to the school rules. Junko starts attacking him without any warning, and power starts flowing, coursing through her whole body. He manages to dodge her attack and eventually is able to restrain her. Akuto tells her that he won't be letting her go until she understands the situation. However, Junko believes that he is trying to embarrass her and gets away. She attacks him once again, but this time Akuto blocks it with his bare hands. His powers start getting out of control, and Akuto's right arm turns beefy. This clash of powers results in an explosion, which results in Junko's defeat. Back at the dorm, Hiroshi decides to become his underling and reassures him to follow his every command. As expected, the first command Akuto gives is to help him visit the girls' dorm. Hiroshi informs Akuto about Junko's room and advises him to enter through the window. As soon as he tries to peek inside, Junko catches him and comes out to confront the creep. She throws him on the ground and starts following to end his life once and for all. He runs into the nearby forest and runs into a girl called Kina. She notices the scratches on his body and decides to protect him. Just as Junko is about to land an attack, Akito uses his powers once again and causes a huge explosion in the forest. The explosion is strong enough to defeat Junko, and she ends up losing consciousness. Suddenly, a portal opens and a girl appears. Her name is Koron, and she introduces herself as an observer. Koron used a ray gun at Junko, and this made Akito realize that Koron is actually an android. The ray gun manages to heal Junko, and she runs away crying out of embarrassment. Meanwhile, Koron informs Akito that she has been assigned to observe him. Koron further tells Akito that she would like to discuss the current situation in front of the headmaster. Hearing the name of the headmaster scares the crap out of Kina, and she runs away after turning invisible. Later, Koron gives her report to the headmaster, which includes that Akito had no intention of harming Junko. Surprisingly, the headmaster is a chill dude and doesn't seem to be worried about Akito being a demon lord. All he cares about is that Akito is currently his student and wants to ensure his safety. After the meeting with the headmaster, Mitsuko reassures him that the school is only trying to look out for him, as a hot-blooded student might want to eliminate him. Later, Akito informs Mitsuko about the powers he used, and according to him, the amount of energy always ends up getting out of his control. Mitsuko informs him that his ability to control mana is so powerful that he can't control it well. Before leaving, she gives him a book that lets Akito talk to any student telepathically. After returning back to his room, he tries to take a nap but gets uncomfortable when Koron keeps staring at his pathetic self. Afterward, he hears some sort of noise and notices that Koron is lying on the bed beside him. His loser mind suggests he take advantage of a literal robot, but he manages to control it. His weird reaction concerns Koron, and she decides to sleep in the closet instead. The next day, Akito is walking toward his class along with Koron and Hiroshi. Out of nowhere, Fujiko, who is the head of the girls' dorm, introduces herself. She comforts him by saying that a weakling like him can never be a demon lord. After she leaves, Hiroshi makes a big deal out of it, informing Akito that Fujiko is the #1 ideal of this school. Inside the classroom, all the desperate boys are jealous of Akito bringing Koron along. After the class ends, Akito calls Fujiko and asks her to help him make up with Junko. Fujiko advises Akito to come alone and leave Koron behind by deactivating her. According to her, androids can be shut down by pulling on their tails. Later, Akito decides to visit the location where he decides to meet up with Fujiko. Koron comes along and Akito tries his best to look for her tail in order to shut her down. Koron realizes that the degenerate is trying to see her plot. However, their conversation gets interrupted by a demon dog which jumps right at them. Koron shoots her gun, but bullets have no effect on him. Akito decides to take it on and uses his powers to suck all the mana that the dog had absorbed. This results in the dog returning to his true form, which is of a cute puppy. Suddenly, he hears the voice of someone freaking out, and turns out that the dog was messing around with Kina. Afterward, Koron bends to inspect the bag that Kina left, giving Akito the perfect opportunity to pull her tail. After he is done, Fujiko makes an appearance and informs Akito that she will be willing to talk to Junko about it. That way she won't be so cautious around a beast like him. Akito mentioned that he wanted to join the cleaning committee to do something good for the school. Fujiko suggests he join the disciplinary committee instead, which makes sure that all the students are following the rules of the school. After he accepts the offer, Fujiko hands over 2 magical pills and informs him that they help 2 people better understand their feeling. She also lends him a gun to shoot those magical pills with. After she leaves, a creepy grin appears on his face as he thinks that Fujiko came all this way just to assist him. Later, Koron starts functioning once again and catches Akito peeking under her plot once again. Luckily, she doesn't remember what happened before he pulled her tail, and the 2 of them start inspecting the bag that Kina left. Suddenly, he hears Kina's voice and starts running in that direction. Turns out that the dog is still running after her, and Kina jumps on Akito to get away from the dog. Just then, her invisibility ability runs out and Akito experiences a girl lying on top of him. Koron arrives at the same time and blames Akito of raising the girl in plain sight. Akito requests Kina to clear the misunderstanding, and she agrees only if he listens to a request of hers. Meanwhile, Koron takes out handcuffs and is ready to take him to the cops.
FBI, open up!
Fortunately, Kina saves him after mentioning that she was the one who jumped on top of him. After she is done clearing his name, Kina asks him to fulfill her request, which is for him to become her friend. At night, Junko is preparing to take a bath and contemplating her defeat. Suddenly, she gets a call from Fujiko, who asks Junko if the Demon Lord is behind her current condition. Fujiko further informs that Akito wants to meet her alone and wants Fujiko to act as an intermediary. She also adds that he threatened her to do so, which riles Junko up, and she decides to meet up with Akito. After successfully manipulating her, Fujiko visits her secret base and reveals her plan of making the future Demon Lord her personal pet. This reminds Fujiko of her childhood when she used to play with her older brother. However, her older brother lost his life after failing to perform a task. At that moment, Fujiko decided to become strong as weakness was the reason behind her brother's demise. On the other hand, Akuto is taking a bath with Hiroshi, who informs him about the school's underground side. There are students who are a part of underground movements and participate in black magic and evil deeds. According to him, Junko is the leader of the team that makes sure to keep the evil people under control. Afterward, Hiroshi leaves the bath and Akuto follows him just to find Koron peeking on them. She asks him the reason men are concerned with about their Excalibur sword. He gives her the logical reason, which makes her want to take a look, but he refuses. Afterward, he receives a call from Fujiko and she tells him the location where he is supposed to meet up with Junko. The next day, Akuto goes to meet the school president, who introduces herself as Lily, along with the vice president Michi, the treasurer Kana, and the secretary Arno. They accept his request to join the disciplinary committee as he seems like a strong fighter. Inside the classroom, Akuto contemplates that the disciplinary committee might be an eyesore as he will have to fight all the evildoers of this school. Afterward, he loads the magical pills inside the gun and figures out that he will need to pull Koron's tail again. In his dorm room, Akuto tries to pull her tail, but Kina arrives and catches him lacking. She informs Koron that he was trying to touch her tail, but she can't do anything about it.
Okay.
Kana brings her rice cooker along and showcases the love she holds for rice. This makes Koron pull out a huge weapon that works like a rocket launcher. Both the girls have the idea to fill it up with rice, but Akuto stops them. Soon, it was time for Akuto to meet with Junko, and he made an excuse to kick Kina out of his room. She thinks that Akuto wants to mess around with Koron and leaves without saying a word. Akuto takes advantage of this opportunity and pulls her tail, resulting in her shutting down. Afterward, he heads towards the underground side of the school where he gets attacked out of nowhere. A couple of boys with weapons surround him and try to attack. He manages to pinpoint his mana and breaks the guy's arm. All the other boys try to attack him but are met with the same fate. The delinquents reveal Hiroshi, who is tied up and is currently in bad shape. This pisses Akuto off even more and he breaks the legs of the other remaining delinquents, leaving the leader only one standing. Akuto decides to take his time beating the leader. He starts off with pinning him on the wall and twisting his leg. Suddenly, Junko arrives and tells him to stop, which gives the leader an opportunity to run away. She seems to think that Akuto is trying to make the delinquents his pets and rule the school with them being his underlings. Having no other choice, Akuto pulls out the toy gun but realizes that there are no pills inside it. Junko decides to gather all the people who hate him and attack the Demon Lord with the whole army. Fujiko, who was keeping an eye on Akuto, notices that the pills disappeared and reveals that they had the power to make anyone her pet. After returning back to his dorm room, Akuto reveals everything to Koron, including how he pulled her tail. Afterward, he meets up with Mitsuko, who informs Akuto that Junko will be taking action on him and it is allowed according to the school rules. The next day, Junko announces that she will be taking action against the Demon Lord and wants to gather everyone who feels the same way. Soon, a whole army of wimps gather and plan to fight Akuto. Eventually, they start shooting arrows at Akuto and he decides to run away from them. The army follows and manages to surround him from all sides. Junko decides to take him on and moves forward to attack him. Akuto can't control his mana like he was able to against his fight with the delinquents. After cornering him, Junko mentions that he didn't even look angered while fighting the delinquents and seemed unaffected. Just as she is about to attack him, Kina arrives and lets Junko know that Akuto is a good guy overall. She also exposes Junko for secretly liking him, which makes the army enraged and they start questioning Junko's true feelings. Seeing how the army is completely against the two of them, Junko decides to fight alongside the Demon Lord and finally admits that she shares some of the faults as well. With that being said, both of them charge towards the army but Koron fires the rocket launcher at them. Akuto manages to defend himself using a shield and the attack turns out to be rice. A huge amount of rice started raining from the sky, filling all the brookies with happiness. Later, Koron detects some sort of substance in the rice and Kina reveals that she dissolved the pills Akuto got from Fujiko in the rice. After the analysis is complete, Koron reveals that the pills are a type of black magic that compels loyalty to a particular individual. On the other hand, the whole army who ate the rice stormed Fujiko's room and started attacking her. The class is practicing magic on the school grounds and Mitsuko advises them to split into groups of 2. Fujiko watches them from afar and makes up her mind to make Akuto her underling. Akuto asks Hiroshi about Kina, which makes Hiroshi think that the Demon Lord might want to get inside her plot. The practice starts and Junko asks Akuto to team up with her. Seeing her act normally makes Akuto cheerful and he holds her hands to show gratitude. Seeing this makes the whole class believe that Akuto already has the class rep around his fingers. The first task is for Akuto to make a ball of mana and throw it towards Junko. Junko advises him to be careful and he eventually throws the ball at her. The mana ball was a little too powerful and caused an explosion. After examining her, Mitsuko informs that she fainted from the shock and hasn't received any injuries. Afterward, she tells him that he needs mental discipline to control his powers and suggests a mental self-discipline chamber for training. Later, he packs up his bag to enter the chamber and Koron decides to accompany him as well. She informs him that there are cameras attached to him which allow her to monitor him the whole day. On the other hand, Fujiko informs her undead brother about Akuto entering the chamber and she wants to formulate a fun plan to make him her pet dog. At night, Akuto and Koron finally head towards the chamber. He enters the chamber thinking that he will be on his own, just to find out that the android decided to come along. She sits close to Akuto, giving him a mixture of strange ideas. However, it is a part of training according to her as he needs to concentrate no matter the type of situation he is in. Suddenly, he finds Kina who decided to follow them and was trapped when the chamber door closed. Meanwhile, Fujiko appeared outside the chamber and brought some illusion magic bullets. She plans to drain him mentally and use it to make him swear loyalty. Inside the chamber, Akuto notices the wall crumbling and manages to find the school map. It seems to tell about something appearing once the 3 keys are collected as written on the map, making them think that it might be a treasure map. Afterward, Akuto finally begins his training but is interrupted by Kina who wants to use the bathroom. However, there is no place for her to use it and Akuto suggests doing it in the water bottle. Kina is embarrassed to do something like this in front of a kinky creep like him. As a last resort, Koron offers to drink it and turn it into energy using her android capabilities, which ends up freaking them out. On the other hand, Fujiko is about to shoot the bullet but notices the commotion taking place inside. Akuto uses the telepathy phone to cancel the training as Kina has to use the restroom. Luckily, Fujiko opens the door, planning to take advantage of the situation, but she forgets everything after taking a look at the treasure map. She takes it to her undead brother and confronts him about it, considering the writing on it matches that of her brother. After not being able to find anything, she is mocked by a girl called Aiko for not successfully making the demon lord her underling. Afterward, she notices the ruckus around the academy and realizes that the map is on display and available for everyone. This results in Fujiko confronting Akuto for stealing the treasure map from her room and making it public. However, they soon manage to find the real culprit, who is none other than the dimwit Kina. According to her, it is better to give information to the adventurers who are into pirate treasures. In the classroom, Akuto comments that Junko is absent due to some family problems when suddenly a bunch of injured students are brought inside who were attacked by monsters while finding the treasure. Later, Lily calls Akuto and tells him to take care of this issue while offering to forget about his mistakes if he pulls it off. This results in Akuto giving a speech to the students and banning treasure hunting for the students. Nevertheless, the students start accusing him of being the one responsible for posting the maps as Kina is a close friend of his. The students start throwing stuff at him, giving Aiko the chance to attack and restrain him. She wants Akuto to go and check out if the map actually is dangerous or not. Surprisingly, the students agree with this proposal and Akuto is forced to listen. Later, Lily advises him to listen to the students and have a look at the location marked on the map. All she wants him to do is to take a look inside, as eliminating the demon dogs or monsters is not the priority this time. After they are done with the meeting, Akuto mentions that Lily's attitude is different and it seems like she is trying to hide something from them. Suddenly, he gets a call from Fujiko and she lends him a gun which allows him to fight perfectly even with his lack of mana control. With that being said, Akuto and Koron decide to visit the treasure location and Hiroshi tags along. Just as they are about to move, Aiko comes out of nowhere and lands on the cherry boy, asking him to take her along. Aiko clings onto Akuto the whole way, making Hiroshi jealous of her. Eventually, they reach the entrance of the dungeon, which is the first point marked on the map. Koron starts analyzing the map and finds code words saying that it is for Yamato Buikairu. The 4 of them finally enter the dungeon and find an infinite number of gravestones. Akuto decides to search for the gravestone with the name Yamato Buikairu on it. He feels bad for the graves, considering the condition they are in. This makes Aiko mock him for being a foul demon lord, which makes Akuto pull out a gun on her. However, he is not trying to hurt Aiko but the monster behind them. On the other hand, Junko breaks into Akuto's dorm room and finds Kina sleeping on his bed. She wakes her up and finds out that Akuto has left with a girl called Aiko. Hearing the girl's name concerns Junko, and she decides to go and take a look herself. Meanwhile, Aiko starts fighting the monster, but the attack doesn't work and she ends up falling on the ground. She tries again but ends up getting attacked by the monster, unable to fight any longer. Akito decides to join the battle and shoots the monster using his gun, which surprisingly is enough to defeat it. Coincidentally, he notices Yamato's grave in front of him and digs inside just to find a little toy. However, there is a recording in the toy which gives Akito some clues regarding the dungeon. Meanwhile, Fujiko is keeping an eye on them and recognizes the toy as something she used to play with. Suddenly, Kina breaks into her room and takes a look at Akito through the magic ball. Afterward, she asks Fujiko to go to the dungeon as she might end up finding some clues related to her older brother. On the other hand, Junko is on her way to the dungeon as well but gets caught by a trap, whereas Akito and the others go a little deeper and come across a city of ruins. They notice a knight equipment facility and decide to check it out. There are several knight armors inside and they suddenly start attacking them. Hiroshi tries to act useful for once and attacks the armor, which almost results in his demise. Luckily, Akito arrives and attacks the armor after blocking its attack with one hand. The failed knight runs away and Hiroshi praises Akito for being this strong. In return, Akito mocks Hiroshi for being a weakling who gets tossed around by everyone. Later, they find a smartphone which gives them the clue to find the limestone cave. Koron starts finding groundwater as it should lead them to the limestone caves. After walking for a while, she ends up finding a cave that has hot springs inside. Akito notices a path underwater and decides to take a look, but Aiko chooses to follow him. On the other hand, Junko also comes across the hot spring and is taking a nice relaxing bath. Suddenly, she hears someone talking and decides to check it out. Meanwhile, Aiko lets Akito know that the treasure is something left by the previous demon lord, which makes Akito a little concerned. Out of nowhere, Juno arrives and jumps in order to attack them. Akito takes a look at her and freaks out. Junko lands in the water and informs Akito that Aiko is an Imperial agent. Aiko gets tired of her mindless blabbering and they begin fighting each other. Meanwhile, Akito notices a demon dog creeping on them. He manages to punch the dog in the face, and the moment that dog tries attacking again, gas comes out of his mouth and he falls asleep. Afterward, Aiko gives Akito the key he was searching for and runs away. Just then, Kina arrives along with Fujiko, and turns out that making the demon dog sleep was Fujiko's doing. After getting out of the dungeon, she twists the key and it teleports her to a different place. Akito and the others follow them and eventually Lily appears as well. She reveals that it was a game put together by the student council, and the first person to arrive at this location is supposed to be the winner. However, Fujiko doesn't believe Lily and runs past her to inspect the place even further. Lily freaks out and asks the other student council members to stop her, but they all fail to do so. Later, Lily asks Akito not to go after her as this place used to be the base of the previous demon lord. Meanwhile, Fujiko manages to open the treasure, which makes a dragon wake up from its slumber. The dragon plans to test Fujiko and will make her its master if she passes, but will eliminate her if she fails. On the other hand, Akito tries to go and help her but is stopped by Lily as the dragon could recognize him as a demon lord. Meanwhile, Fujiko found out from the dragon's memories that her brother only wanted to protect the relic from getting into the wrong hands and didn't meet his demise due to his being weak. Surprisingly, everyone else saw it too, and it seemed like a log recorded in the dragon according to Koron. Lily tries to stop Akito once again and a fight between the two commences. The wannabe Luffy stretches her arms to punch Akito in the face. Luckily, he is able to defeat her using his powers and moves forward to fight the dragon. The dragon starts attacking him, but Akito easily blocks his attacks and makes a brutal one himself. This is enough to bring the dragon down, and it finally makes Akito his new master, introducing himself as Peter Hassan. Koron seems to be having a meeting with the higher-ups, and they ask her to use any means necessary to charm the demon lord. Afterward, the whole school visits the beach for a field trip. Akito is sitting next to Kina and suggests she should work to achieve a better-looking appeal for him. Unexpectedly, Koron arrives and asks him to put sunscreen on her. Her weird behavior reminds Akito about how at first he was not allowed to visit the sea. However, Koron somehow made it possible by taking responsibility for his actions. Koron is following her orders very strictly and is doing her best to tame the demon lord by rizzing him. Nevertheless, he straight up lets Koron know that she doesn't have the goods to make him excited. The next day, Koron tries the apron cosplay, but it doesn't work either. Akito starts thinking that Koron might be worried that he doesn't like her anymore. Nevertheless, it turns out that she is only after his powers, and Akito manages to escape the situation by heading towards school. Unfortunately, Koron doesn't leave him alone at school as well. She tries every cosplay possible, but nothing seems to work, while Akito decides to visit Peter Hassan in order to hide from Koron and finds Kina already sleeping by his side. Koron follows Akito in the dungeon as well and inquires if he likes Kina. Koron further adds that she wants to service those desires of his. Suddenly, Junko's voice brings him back to the present. Koron takes his hand and puts it on Junko's talents so she won't feel left out. This results in her going berserk and taking out her sword to end the life of this petty degenerate. Later, Akuto forces Koron to apologize to Junko for her actions. However, she manages to turn this conversation into her receiving a lesson. Their conversation makes the other students think that the Demon Lord has it great, considering the cute girls around him. Afterward, Akuto asks Junko to go for a swim together and Kina joins them as well. She complains that Akuto always calls Kina by her first name and advises him to do the same with her. Just when Akuto is about to call Junko by her first name, Koron arrives and pulls Junko's plot down. Akuto gets mad at Koron and confronts her for acting weird. She replies that hurting others was never her intention as she is not good with this kind of stuff. Afterward, Akuto catches Hiroshi walking deeper into the island and asks him about it. Hiroshi informs him that this island is his hometown and he will be visiting his house. He further informs him that this island has a legend regarding the Demon Lord and that is the reason he wasn't allowed to visit the island in the first place. The legend includes a demonic monster appearing at the center of the lake and a hero will defeat that monster and the Demon King as well. Akuto calls this legend complete rubbish and Hiroshi runs away crying, telling Akuto that he won't understand what a weakling like him goes through. At night, Akuto plans to go out and investigate the creepy aura he has been feeling all day and Koron decides to come along. On the other hand, Fujiko has switched her dreams from wanting Akuto as her pet dog to becoming his pet dog. Peter Hassan likes the proposal but feels like Fujiko lacks Akuto's ambitions. Afterward, Lily arrives and brings good news for the two of them. She informs them that the mainstream faction she is a part of ordered Koron to charm Akuto up. She also includes her plan of going against the higher-ups and she found info on some of them trying to start a war. Before leaving, Lily warns Fujiko that if Black Magician will try using Akuto as a tool, she will make sure to destroy them as well. Peter Hassan advises Fujiko to let Akuto know about the information they received, but there was mana interference. Meanwhile, Akuto and Koron are in the forest and she runs into the forest after hearing someone's footsteps. He tries following Koron and ends up in front of a shrine where Kina runs into him. She informs him that Fujiko wanted her to inform Akuto that a group of people called Simon 5 are after him. According to her, they are good at eliminating magicians and not someone to be taken lightly. Afterward, she drinks some rice juice and gets drunk due to it. This results in Kina messing around with him and letting him know that spending time with Akuto feels nostalgic to her. This statement confirms the fact that the girl he met in his childhood was none other than Kina herself. Eventually, Kina gets tired and falls asleep on his lap. The weirdo tries to kiss her real quick, but she catches him and offers to give him a kiss on the cheeks. He accepts the offer but gets kicked by Koron just when he is about to receive it. She tells Akuto that there is no time for them to argue right now when suddenly they all hear a gunshot. Unfortunately, Koron is the one who gets shot and falls to the ground. After getting shot, she starts bleeding but tells Akuto that she will be alright. However, she asks him about his feelings towards Kina, as this could be a bad thing for her. Koron realizes that she might have failed her mission and leaves after telling Akuto that this might be the last time they meet. Suddenly, Kina woke up and told Akuto that Koron was trying to charm him for some reason and could lose her observation task if she were to fail. On the other hand, Hiroshi is sitting outside his house when his little sister, Yukiko, makes an appearance. Suddenly, they hear the villagers talking about Hiroshi being the hero of the village. Yukiko also finds out about Akuto being the Demon Lord, but Hiroshi clears up the misunderstanding, telling her that he is not really the Demon Lord. Later, they also start hearing the villager talk crap behind his back about how Akuto is a wimp who can never be called a hero. The next day, Yukiko visits the hotel where Akuto is staying and asks if he is the Demon Lord. However, their conversation is interrupted by Hiroshi, who introduces Yukiko as her younger sister to everyone. Nevertheless, Yukiko keeps on asking if Hiroshi is the hero and Akuto denies it, saying that he most likely doesn't want to be one. Yukiko starts crying and runs away while Hiroshi runs after her. Junko confronts him for being a killjoy and how he crushed her dreams while denying the role of the Demon Lord. Later, Hiroshi and Kina, who are looking for Yukiko, meet up at the lake, which was apparently the Lake of Legend. Suddenly, a weird sound starts coming from the lake and Hiroshi explains that the lake is actually a part of the ocean. Due to the underground cave that connects the two, air gets filled inside and depending on the tides, a sound like this comes out every once in a while. Furthermore, there is an altar inside the cave that was built by his grandpa. It marks where the hero lies and has a sword stuck in a boulder. Kina got curious and wanted to check it out, but their little date got interrupted by a weirdo screaming at the lake. Suddenly, a huge sea cucumber emerged from the lake upon his orders and walked towards Yukiko to attack her. The cultured villain started licking Hiroshi's little sister, which made him furious. But his attacks were weak as ever, resulting in no damage done to the cucumber. Apparently, he uses mana draining magic, which makes it impossible to attack. Meanwhile, Kina starts to get slower as she is looking forward to disappearing soon. However, she was caught by the degenerate as well, and now he had 2 girls to lick instead of 1. After Yukiko mentioned that Hiroshi was a hero, that guy ran towards him and kicked Hiroshi in the face. He gets up again and plans to fight differently this time, but nothing changes as he ends up getting choked and thrown under the lake. Afterward, the cucumber makes its way towards the village while the weirdo is riding on top. He introduces himself as Mr. X and recognizes that Akuto is a demon lord. Mr. X shows Akuto the 2 girls he has in his captivity and the boy he disposed of earlier. After hearing that he eliminated Hiroshi, Akuto gets enraged and kicks the hell out of Mr. X. He manages to break the chains tying the girls up and becomes Mr. Olympia. Suddenly, a noise starts coming which causes trouble for Akuto and starts getting beat up. This comes as a surprise for Junko, as Akuto's body should be strengthened by mana, and there was no way for him to get damaged no matter how many times he's attacked. Mr. X reveals that the sound they are hearing shakes people's souls, which make it impossible to use magic while listening to that sound. Mr. X attacks Akuto once again while all he can do is get beaten up. After he is done with Akuto, Mr. X moves towards the girls to eliminate them as he disposes of everyone who has seen his ugly face. On the other hand, Hiroshi is drowning in the lake and starts thinking that he needs to change, starting now. Junko takes out her sword and is ready to fight Mr. X, and at the same time Akuto also gets back up only to kiss the ground once again. Meanwhile, Hiroshi reaches the altar and tries to remove the sword from the boulder. He easily manages to pull it out and announces his desire to attain the powers of hero. The sword starts glowing and transforms into a little gadget. It introduces itself as brave and transforms Hiroshi's whole body, giving him the confidence to defeat Mr. X. On the other hand, Akuto finally figures out that the noise is Mr. X's soul, and if he makes his own soul shout even louder, the battle is winnable. He tries fighting with this tactic and manages to land some solid blows on the cultured guy. Mr. X reveals his ultimate plan to cause wars, which is the ultimate form of art according to him. He further reveals that while he is busy fighting him, the cucumber is demolishing the village and all the innocent people are getting sacrificed. Suddenly, he takes out a weapon and attacks the girls, but Koron appears out of nowhere and saves them. She informs Akuto that she was able to negotiate a plea bargain which allowed her to come back. Afterward, Koron tells Mr. X that his current actions have been determined to be unfitting for his position in the Ministry of Magical Intelligence. She then moves forward to attack him, and the soul noise doesn't affect her a bit. He's out cold with only 1 punch, but the cucumber is still causing havoc in the village. Suddenly, Hiroshi arrives near the cucumber and attacks it with lasers after dodging its attacks. Afterward, he asks the computer to use a power called Plasma Sphere, which results in the cucumber getting destroyed by Hiroshi. He finally reveals himself as Brave, the legendary hero. Hiroshi then moves towards Mr. X and tries to eliminate him, but Akuto manages to stop him. Hiroshi reveals that it is not possible to protect the island until Mr. X is disposed of, but is forced to leave after Akuto refuses to listen. Soon after, Hiroshi without the hero armor makes an appearance and reveals that he was rescued by a hero called Brave. Later, Koron revealed that the Ministry of Magic didn't know about Mr. X, and she used that to gain the upper hand. She further informs him that the charming thing is still going on and her plan is to make him marry someone. This time she wants Akuto to marry Junko, which makes her embarrassed, and Junko runs away screaming. Buakaru is having a discussion with Aiko, and he reveals that Akuto was supposed to release the seal and meet his demise on the island, but it was someone else who managed to release it. According to him, the future was changed by Akuto due to his rapid growth. He finally decides that it is time to settle things once and for all with Akuto. On the other hand, Akuto was sleeping and dreamed about giving the hairpin to Kina in his childhood. He wanted her to keep it safe so they could recognize each other if they were ever reunited. He suddenly wakes up and notices Kina standing in front of him. She asks Akuto about his birthday, which is on the 25th of December, but sadly, it is the day he was left in front of the church and he doesn't know his real birthday. However, Kina is in the same situation and she has to make up her own birthday as well. Afterward, Akuto notices the hairpin and asks Kina if the two of them have met before. She replies that the first time they both met was when he was getting attacked by Junko. He tries to confirm if she isn't the girl who received a hairpin from him when he left the orphanage. Turns out, Kina wasn't that girl and she doesn't even remember who gave her the pin in the first place. Later, she asks Akuto if he will be willing to celebrate her birthday and he agrees. On the other hand, magic beasts start reappearing in the underground and Fujiko believes that Akuto will be happy if she takes care of those things. Finally, the monster crosses her patience level and she begins attacking him ruthlessly. He is finished with a single attack, which results in Fujiko finding a magical beast egg. Suddenly, Peter Hassan arrives and Fujiko manages to hide the egg, informing him that she will be taking care of the magical beasts that have appeared recently. Now that Akuto has awakened, the number of magical beasts started increasing, but Brave was doing its best to deal with them. On the other hand, Akuto and the others are hanging out in his room while Kina is enjoying eating rice. Akuto asks her the reason behind her skipping classes, and she simply replies that she doesn't feel like it. The nerd tries to pressure her to attend more classes, but she ends up leaving the room. Hiroshi reveals that even though Kina is excellent in studies, her magic is not the best, which results in her getting mocked and teased by others. Akuto doesn't believe in judging people by magic, but Koron adds that God is the one responsible for giving people magic. This means that people who are blessed with stronger magic are considered to be accepted by God. However, Akuto believes that changing the world with his own two hands and becoming the high priest is the most efficient way to do so. Later that day, Kina is enjoying eating rice balls when Akuto arrives and asks her to take the classes together. Surprisingly, she uses invisibility to run away while Akuto is forced to run around the campus with her clothes in his hand, making people think that another degenerate appeared in their school. At night, Koron informs him that her being friends with him most likely puts her in a weird spot. In order to fix this issue, Akuto tells Kina that she needs to stop talking to him as people might not want to interact with her. Nevertheless, she starts messing around and doesn't take his comments seriously. Later, Junko arrives and Akuto discusses Kina's situation with her. However, she informs Akuto that skipping or attending the class is her own decision and there is nothing she can help Kina with. After going back to the girls' dorm, Junko regrets acting like she doesn't care, which reminds her of what Koron told her about marriage. Fujiko took the magical beast egg for herself and started overflowing the egg with some magic so it could hatch early. Soon after, she gets tired and goes to sleep, but just then, someone manages to steal the egg. The next morning, everyone is having breakfast and Kina brings the egg she stole from Fujiko earlier. They plan to make egg on rice with it while Fujiko wakes up and realizes that Kina most likely stole the egg. Meanwhile, Hiroshi also arrives and notices that the egg is indeed a magical beast. Akuto picks it up, which causes the size of the egg to increase. He touches it once again and this time the egg hatches. A two-headed chicken comes out from the egg and starts causing havoc. Akuto manages to save Kina from its attacks but ends up getting wounded. Koron also arrives, and just as she is about to attack, Fujiko makes an appearance and reveals that she has also excavated the beast for Akuto. She orders the chicken to bow down to her, but the beast ends up picking her up and starts pecking. Akuto handles the situation by attacking the beast with an attack, but it makes the beast even bigger in size. Afterward, the beast takes a look at Akuto and flies away without attacking them further. Luckily, Hiroshi uses Brave's powers and decides to go after the magical beast. Simultaneously, Yuri is doing a live TV show when the magical beast arrives and they decide to run away. Fortunately, Brave arrives just at the right time and uses his high-frequency blade to behead the chicken and eliminate it easily. Afterward, he gets down to help the civilians and realizes that Yuri is one of them. She starts hugging him and gives him a kiss for saving her life. The next day, Akuto reports the incident to Lily, but she decides to overlook the incident as there was no actual damage to the academy. After he leaves, the student council discusses that the magical beasts are reacting to Akuto's powers. Lily concludes that they will have to take care of it one way or another, as the government will find out even if they stay quiet. Later, Kina arrives and tells Akuto that she will go to the classroom with him. This reformed version of Kina makes him happy, and Akuto promises to protect her from all sorts of trouble. On the other hand, Junko finally decides to have a serious conversation with Koron and asks if the thing about marriage is actually true. Koron reassures her that it is all true and she has already contacted her parents regarding this issue. Surprisingly, her dad even approved of a formal meeting. Akuto remembers the time of his childhood when a priest gave the kids of the orphanage some food to eat. He told the kids to thank God instead of thanking him, but Akuto refused and told him that he won't be thanking God. He further told the priest that God is a system created by humans and refuses to apologize for something that doesn't exist. The priest gets furious and tells Akuto that this is the reason his mom left him. The priestess forced Akuto to apologize and informed him that sometimes he had to bow his head even if he was right. At this moment, Akuto made up his mind to never let this happen to him ever again. Back in the present, Junko is having a conversation with her dad and informs him that Akuto is a Koro follower and he might not join the Hattori family as they believe in Suhara. However, her dad suggests Akuto converts and tells her that all the preparations for the meeting are complete. Afterward, she starts thinking of ways she can break the news to Akuto and starts doing rehearsal. Unfortunately, Koron ends up seeing her embarrassing act and promises to keep it a secret, as every human has some weird kinks they don't want to share. Junko replies that it is only a political marriage and she will be able to inform him easily. Later, she finally gathers up the courage and asks Akuto to come to her homeland. She further informs that there is something political that her family wants to discuss with Akuto. Afterward, Buakaru is having a meeting with the school principal and Akuto manages to hear their conversation while walking past them. Buakaru reveals to him that the sudden arrival of magical beasts is because of Akuto. The next day, everyone except for Kina boards the train in order to visit Junko's house. Junko still hasn't told Akuto about the marriage and is still embarrassed to talk about it. Koron offers to help, but Junko delays his curiosity by saying that it is something political. As soon as they get off the train, a ninja star lands near Hiroshi's leg and he freaks out. Junko yells at her sister for doing such dangerous pranks. The younger sister arrives and introduces herself as Yuuko. It turns out she is Hashino Yuri, the idol that Hiroshi simps on. Yuuko is about to mention her marriage but stops when Junko puts a sword on her neck, forcing Yuuko to shut up. While they are walking towards the main mansion, Yuuko seems curious about Akuto as he smells of a magic beast. However, Hiroshi reveals that he just doesn't shower much and is generally a good guy. Afterward, Yuuko informs him that she was bitten by a magic beast when she was a child and its mana flew into her body. This results in her getting sensitive to magical beasts. Eventually, they all reach the mansion and Junko's father decides to have a serious talk with Akuto. He asks Akuto if he really likes her daughter and he agrees, thinking that her father is likely talking about their relationship as friends. The dad seems happy and inquires about his plans to interact with Junko, considering her standing. Akuto thinks that the father is talking about their temporary stay in the mansion and replies that he wishes to make the best decisions for her. This is enough to win the heart of that old geezer, and everyone decides to have a feast to celebrate it. After dinner, Junko is taking a bath and realizes that Akuto might be misunderstanding the whole situation and she decides to check with him once more. Junko finally has a plan to riz Akuto. By doing this, she will be able to understand his true feelings. After she is done with taking a bath, she visits Akuto's room and start going commando. However, Akuto stops her midway and tells her not to push herself for the sake of the Hattori family. She finally explains the marriage part to him. Akuto freaks out and apologizes for agreeing as according to him, she probably doesn't want to marry a loser like him in the first place. Hearing him talk so honestly makes Junko regret her previous actions and she leaves while crying her eyes out. As soon as she left, all the ninjas surrounded Akuto thinking that he might be trying to destroy the Hattori family from the beginning. He managed to run away, and the ninja kept on following him until they fell into a trap. Turns out Aiko is the one who sets up the trap. She asks Akuto to visit the Teruya family as they are of higher class than Hattori and he would be better off with her family instead of Junko's. However, he clearly rejects her offer, making Aiko mad. On the other hand, Kina is celebrating her birthday on her own and a few ugly-looking men are keeping an eye on her. The leader orders the snake-looking guy to go and restrict Kina. Meanwhile, Aiko reveals that her family also does part-time assassinations and takes care of everyone that Suhara deems dangerous. After hearing that their target is Kina, Akuto gets furious and a huge amount of energy starts flowing out of his body. Yuuko tries to attack him with a ninja star but it disappears before even reaching him. This gives Aiko the chance to run away, and Akuto informs Yuuko that he will apologize for everything after taking care of some personal business. Just then, Koron arrives and informs Akuto that Suhara has not been answering her inquiries. Additionally, she refuses to help Akuto in any way as she is a believer in God as well. Koron decides to fight him if he forces, but this is all an act as she gets close enough for Akuto to pull her tail and deactivate her. Meanwhile, the snake and the other guys have surrounded Kina and are about to end her life when suddenly Buakaru arrives and takes care of them all using his dimensional slashing powers. He manages to protect her but Akuto arrives at the same time. Buakaru informs Akuto that Kina is an identity, which means that by creating a contract between her and a singularity, he will attain a body needed to conquer the gods. The reason Suhara gave orders to eliminate her was so Buakaru didn't succeed in his plan. Akuto gets enraged and uses her powers, but Buakaru slashes his arm off before he can even notice. Surprisingly, Akuto uses his powers to regrow his arm, and just as Buakaru is about to attack him once again, Kina manages to get close to Akuto, which results in Buakaru not being able to attack. Simultaneously, Fujiko arrives along with all the magic beasts as she has learned how to control them. Akuto gets on top of the magical beasts and tells Buakaru that he will end the story where gods order the demise of men. A huge number of magical beasts appeared near the location and surrounded all the buildings. Buakaru believes that Akuto will be destroying the world and takes out his weapon to take him on. Meanwhile, Aiko is also watching the things happening out there when suddenly her father arrives, who is on the verge of demise after fighting Buakaru. He advises Aiko to part ways with Buakaru as he has backstabbed them. However, Aiko uses this opportunity to end her father's life and take control of the family. Suddenly, a member of the inner cabinet of the magical department arrives and introduces himself as V2. On the other hand, Junko and her father are also watching Akuto's doing and decide to aid the Tsuruya family in fighting the Demon Lord. Her father gives Junko the treasured sword that has been passed down to their family. However, no one has been able to unsheath the sword. Suddenly, her grandmother arrives and supports the idea of giving the sword to Junko and informs her that she will be able to unsheath it only once the katana itself wants her to. In the end, she advises Junko to do what she believes is right instead of living by God's will. Meanwhile, the fight between Buakaru and Akuto commences, and his mana healing can't keep up with Buakaru's attacks. Luckily, Fujiko calls out to the beast and manages to flee the scene after securing Akuto. She plans to reach the place where Peter Hassan is present, which will allow the Demon Lord to release his full powers. They finally reach the school, but the principal is waiting at the entrance. He allows them to pass and plans to stop Buakaru from going any further. Once they are inside the school, another problem arises, but it is a little one this time. Lily appears and she confronts him with everything that has been going on outside. Eventually, she allows him to go to the dragon but warns that she will be his enemy if he plans to completely destroy the current system. On the other hand, Junko along with her sister Yuuko has arrived at the scene with the other ninjas. Afterward, they meet up with Aiko, who informs them that she will be commanding the Hattori family. Apparently, Aiko has her eyes on the Suhara blade and wants it for herself. She plans to send both the sisters to the front lines alone and take the blade for herself after they are defeated. The media covers their bold move to go alone, and Aiko lies about the sisters wanting to go on their own so that there won't be any blame on the Tsuruya family. Just then, Brave also arrives and Yuuko gives him a big hug. He promises to protect her no matter what and contemplates that Akuto might be sacrificing everything just to protect Kina. Meanwhile, they finally reach the place where Peter Hassan is resting, and he informs the dragon about his intentions, which are to eliminate the idea of gods. Peter Hassan seems excited and tells Akuto that no one can stop them from taking over the skies. The dragon finally takes the skies and reveals himself to the world. All the citizens start freaking out after seeing the Demon Lord. Junko is hiding nearby and decides to attack Akuto with everything she has. Surprisingly, Akuto's aura is enough to completely destroy her blade. She is about to take out the Suhara blade and asks Akuto the reason he doesn't care about her. He pulls her towards himself and picks her up, informing her that he will take care of her as much as she wants after finishing this fight. Afterward, Brave arrives and his attack ends up wounding Peter Hassan. The dragon mentions that it is the first time someone wounded him since his birth. However, this made Peter Hassan even happier as he was excited to face a formidable opponent for the first time in his life. Akuto warns the dragon that he should be ready to lose, and even though Peter Hassan agrees, he comments that it is impossible for them to lose. On the other hand, V2 informs Aiko that there might be a magic beast controlling device and the battle will become easy for them if they manage to steal it. This results in Aiko ordering all the forces to infiltrate the school and steal the remote while letting Brave take care of the Demon Lord. Just when the sisters are about to enter the school, a weird-looking creature arrives and starts attacking them. Surprisingly, V2 is the one who called it and it goes by the name of Rubbers. Meanwhile, Brave is fighting Akuto and asks him the reason behind not showing the people a better direction. Akuto says that what people follow is nothing more than a system that they are starting to believe is an actual entity. According to Akuto, people wished for blessings from God and the actual people behind it used these standards to eliminate people and cause wars. He has made up his mind to defeat God and prove how the actual story itself is a lie. Suddenly, Peter Hassan tries attacking Brave with his teeth and is about to blast him. Brave asks the computer to take countermeasures, and the computer transforms his suit into Counter Demon King combat mode. Suddenly, the mana with which Peter Hassan was attacking Brave got dissipated and the mana inside his body started draining away. Simultaneously, the Imperial Army flying carrier called Jinkaku arrives and starts attacking Peter Hassan. Meanwhile, the principal informs Buakaru that he noticed something after the two of them defeated the Demon Lord 100 years ago. The real reason Buakaru was searching for the girl with that attribute was because he wanted to become a Demon Lord himself. Buakaru most probably saw Kina with those abilities and wanted her for himself. On the other hand, Fujiko and Kina are watching the fight, which doesn't seem to be going in their favor. Suddenly, Kina's personality changes and she asks Fujiko about the current world. She replies that it is better to choose war than genocide, as without war, there will only be genocide. After saying that she should just go boom, Kina returns back to her original personality. On the other hand, Peter Hassan gets close to the Imperial ship, which has mana regeneration to regenerate his mana. Suddenly, B2 starts controlling the pilot of the ship using his magic and requests free control over the ship. He uses the ship to hit Peter Hassan and buries them under the ship, making everyone think that this might be the end for the Demon Lord. Buakaru contemplates that in the far future, he had lost the girl who had become a singularity and turned into a time traveler. He had met her at different times and had different battles but ended up losing all of them. However, this time he is confident to finally succeed. Junko is on the verge of crying after the ship crushes Akuto but notices the magic beast inside Yuuko still reacting, which means that the Demon Lord is still alive. Brave also runs inside in order to check on Akuto and finds the old buff dude fighting Buakaira. He tries to attack the principal but Brave comes in his way but his powers stop working. He realizes that Buakaira must be the one who left the Brave suit on the island. Hiroshi tells Buakaira that he most likely needs him and that the reason he made the suit is because he is too weak to defeat the Demon Lord himself. The two of them decide to cooperate for the time being and Buakaira agrees to grant Hiroshi more power. Meanwhile, Kina informs Fujiko that she can still feel Akuto's aura, which means he is not eliminated yet. Suddenly, the Rubber arrives and is about to attack the two of them. Fujiko pulls out her trusty whip and hits Rubber with it, but the creepy fellow seems to enjoy it. On the other hand, the army of Teruya starts to infiltrate the school but is stopped by Lily, who is present at the entrance. Afterward, she announces to the media that Aiko is the one who eliminated her father to take control of the Teruya household. Everyone is surprised after hearing this news and Aiko starts freaking out. She orders all the forces to eliminate her, but she turns out to be stronger than her pesky forces. In the end, Aiko decides to join the battle and orders the army to capture her for now. Meanwhile, Rubbers is about to attack Fujiko when the vice president arrives and uses her abilities to fight Rubbers. The student council member, Kana, also arrives and crashes into the Teruya forces trying to capture Lily. They all plan to go wild and fight the opposing forces with everything they have. On the other hand, Rubbers seems to be struggling against the vice president's bats, but Buakaira arrives and helps him out. Fujiko recognizes him as the one who eliminated her brother and he tells Kina that she is needed for his ultimate plan. Kina's personality switches again and she tells Buakaira that he doesn't need her because his heart lies somewhere else. She is able to tell because she can feel the change in people's hearts. However, he couldn't care less and still manages to capture Kina. Fujiko tries to attack with her whip, but Buakaira stops it with his bare hands. He blames her for the awakening of the Demon Lord and leaves afterward. Later, the vice president seems to be having trouble fighting Rubbers, but Fujiko arrives at the perfect time and takes her away. He starts following them and is about to catch up at any moment. On the other hand, Aiko calls Junko and orders her to get rid of Lily and threatens to hurt Yuuko if Junko fails to complete this task. Having no other choice, she runs to stop the president while asking Akuto to prove to everyone that he is the real Demon King and not some wannabe who gets excited over an android.
Ha! Gay!
Finally, Lily seems to be getting closer to Aiko, but she notices Junko standing in her way. Lily soon realizes that Aiko is holding her sister hostage, but she doesn't plan to stop. The Hattori family's forces arrive to aid Junko and are about to attack the president when suddenly some of the Teruya forces attack them. They inform Lily that they believe Aiko has eliminated her father, but surprisingly, they all are dolls controlled by V2. The battlefield turns into a complete massacre. Lily offers to save her sister if she gets the chance. However, Junko still tries to stop her, which results in her kissing the floor. On the other hand, Fujiko finally reaches her lab and asks the vice president to hold the Rubbers off while she cooks something suitable for this battle. Soon after, Fujiko returns with liquid nitrogen and frees Rubbers, which is then completely shattered into pieces by the vice president. Seeing how Junko failed, Aiko is about to attack Yuuko, but Brave arrives and stops her. After he successfully saves her, Buakaira and Brave teleport along with Yuuko. Lily uses this opportunity to rain an infinite number of punches on Aiko, but it turns out that she has already escaped. Afterward, V2 arrives to face her and proposes to team up, but she disagrees. The whole doll army is about to attack them when suddenly an explosion occurs, eliminating all of them. Fortunately, Fujiko and the vice president arrive on the scene and Lily decides to use her strongest attack, called the punch. This is enough to send V2 flying away and crash into a tent nearby. However, they find that this V2 is another doll as well and they suddenly hear him laughing. Lily asks him to show himself, but he refuses, saying that he doesn't have a face. Unexpectedly, the Imperial ship that crushed Akuto starts moving and it turns out that Akuto is lifting the whole ship on his own. He shows his gratitude to the principal for helping him out, but he reveals that the dragon was the one behind it. Peter Hassan reveals that some of his powers might have suffered due to the recent situation. Later, Fujiko reveals that Kina was captured by Buakaira and Akuto plans to chase him and retrieve her. Fujiko offers to go with him, but Akuto refuses, saying that there will be unknown dangers and it is not safe for her. Just then, Lily arrives and tells Akuto that he is trying to destroy the system completely. He asks Lily if she will become his enemy, but she refuses, saying that she would just enjoy seeing how it turns out. Suddenly, Aiko arrives and tells her forces to attack the Demon Lord. Junko tries to get in her way, but her soldiers try to stop her as it could be dangerous for their family. Junko remembers the words her grandmother said, and she finally takes out the Suhara sword, saying that she will fight for the person she loves. Afterward, she uses the powers of the blade to defeat all of Aiko's troops in a split second. Without wasting another second, she jumps and is about to cut Aiko in half, but Koron arrives and stops Junko. She advises that they need Aiko to live and atone for her sins instead of giving her an easy demise. Aiko uses this opportunity to run away, but gets confronted by her father, who is surprisingly still alive. On the other hand, Akuto is soaring the skies with Peter Hassan, and he reveals that demon lords are humans who receive tweaks in their body. This allows them to be born as many times, but if there is not a possibility of the demon lord working out, he is eliminated and the next one appears after 100 years or so. This is God's doing, and they keep on repeating this process. Suddenly, Akuto notices Brave coming at them at full speed. Akuto tells Brave not to get in his way, as he will end everything that he has started. Afterward, he has enough useless conversation and decides to fight Brave. Peter Hassan warns Akuto that Brave is using a mana canceller, but he doesn't care and wants to fight him head on. Peter Hassan rushes towards Brave, and Akuto jumps off at the last moment and starts attacking the mana canceller with his bare hands. Brave notices the damage that Akuto is tanking and asks him to stop. At the same time, he tries to remove the plasma sphere that Akuto is holding, but it seems impossible for the system to remove it. The system eventually releases all the plasma energy in the surroundings, which results in a huge explosion. Both of them start falling towards the ground, and Akuto manages to completely heal his body. Akuto tells Hiroshi that he is aware of his weak mind and that he will hesitate in the end. He asks Hiroshi to inform the upcoming generation about the truth if he doesn't return. Afterward, Hiroshi loses consciousness and Akuto delivers him to Yuko. She is surprised to see that Hiroshi is Brave that she likes so much. Before leaving, he reveals his plan to eliminate God and take his place. Hiroshi warns him that it might look like the Demon King trying to conquer the world, but he doesn't care and walks away. Meanwhile, Uekaru finally reaches Suhara and eliminates everyone guarding the Suhara tree. Two last guardians arrive and confront Uekaru for wanting to conquer God. He easily manages to defeat both of them and walks towards the tree, informing them that any of their plans that might perish humanity is unacceptable to him. Once he gets close enough, he orders the tree to prepare the Singularity contract. The tree splits into two and reveals a new dimension. Hina starts flying and asks Uekaru to stop this, as it is still not too late. Uekaru counters that humanity will perish if he doesn't make this plan work. Tina reveals that even though he knows God's foolishness and tries to correct it, he always fails and can't stop Suhara from using his methods. The big strong Uekaru starts weeping, and when Kina gets close to him, he restrains her and wants to continue with the plan, thinking that at least she can be his. Suddenly, Akuto arrives and tells Uekaru that both of them are just cleaning up for the system, but the only difference between them is that Akuto is a natural Rizzler while Uekaru always ends up losing his girl. He hates Akuto for this exact reason and starts attacking him. Uekaru manages to attack his legs and moves towards to slash him into two parts. However, it is just an afterimage, and the real Akuto attacks him from behind. He uses another one of his attacks to make Uekaru unable to fight anymore. The Guardians ask Akuto to seal the contract with the identity, but he refuses to do so. He reveals that his real motives are to end God and the network terminal once and for all. The Guardians reveal that the Demon King is a device created by each god to destroy the human in God's place. Akuto reveals that once the Demon King facade is over, the people will finally understand that God is merely a system controlled by humans, seeing how he had no intentions to change his mind. Sahara uses the defense system and tells Akuto that he will perish along with his identity. The building collapses and the Sahara tree starts floating in the sky. Just as he is about to follow the tree, Uekaru wakes up and asks Akuto if he is planning to eliminate the god himself. However, Akuto replies that it doesn't matter and flies towards the tree. Peter Hassan attacks the tree and flies inside through the hole. They step inside another dimension and the Sahara defense mechanism starts attacking them. They finally arrive at the location where they can absorb God's functionality, and Peter Hassan begins the process by attaching the cables around the whole place. He reveals that the process will fail if even one of the cables is damaged, and Akuto decides to protect him until the process is complete. Akuto tries to defend him, but his powers are still not enough. Peter Hassan offers to remove the limiter on Akuto's powers, and he agrees to do so. Finally, the dragon is able to steal the functions, but realizes that Akuto is being absorbed by the powers and has opened a dimensional hole. However, Akuto is scared to release the powers of the dimensional hole, as he can't seem to hold the responsibility of the world once it changes. Akuto contemplates that he does this each time and always questions himself before doing something. However, this time he decides to change this habit and decides to follow his guts. Kina, who arrived earlier, is advised by Peter Hassan to get away while he will try to tank the explosion and save Akuto. Sadly, the dragon will most likely lose his life. Kina goes and hugs Akuto when suddenly her consciousness is teleported somewhere else. Kina notices a girl standing in front of her who introduces herself as the other Kina. She reveals that this version of her will remain forever even if Kina is eliminated. She asks if Kina wants to bring happiness to the two boys that love her, and she agrees. For Buakairo, she plans to put peace in his soul, as his only wish was to bring happiness to the person who would become his identity in the future. While for Akuto, she will rewrite his story so he can return back to his normal life. Finally, a huge explosion occurs and the dragon loses his life. Everyone travels towards the explosion via a helicopter and notices Akuto and Kina waiting for their arrival. Junko approaches Akuto and informs him that she will throw away her bond with the household for him. Simultaneously, Yuuko arrives and asks Akuto to do something for her awkward sister. Surprisingly, Yuuko doesn't remember Akuto being the Demon Lord and thinks that the Demon Lord lost his life in the explosion. Everyone soon finds out that except for the people who fought the actual battle, everyone else had their memories rewritten. Soon after, Akuto's normal life begins and Koron plans to stick around for a little longer. Junko allows Akuto to call her by her first name. Kina still refuses to tell Akuto about the person who altered everyone's memories, and Fujiko still wants to make Akuto the Demon King. Finally, the fortune-telling crow makes another appearance and informs everyone that Akuto is the Demon King once again. Everyone freaks out and Junko starts attacking him for betraying her once again. This was all about Akuto and his experiences being a Demon King. Will the fortune of the crow come true this time as well? Comment Demon King below and let us know. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more plot-filled recaps.